Well, I can't believe I am saying this, but breaking news, Julian Assange is free. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just as shocked as you are. I heard the news last night, actually, when I was at the gym. I was mid squat, literally mid squat, when I saw the notification and scroll across my phone because I use my phone for my Spotify and all that stuff. But you don't need to get into all that. Julian Assange is actually free, ladies and gentlemen. Free. We're going to get into the gist of what happened. Of course, there is a plea deal that is involved with this as well. For those who are not aware, the United States government didn't just say he can just go free without pleading guilty. So we'll get into that and what that means and what could possibly happen in the future. Also, where is he currently now? So let's go ahead and get started with this clip here from CNN. Shout out to Case Study QB for this. Julian Assange agrees to plea deal, avoids prison in the U.S. Let's roll it.
And breaking news, we are learning of a plea deal for Julian Assange, the WikiLeaks founder, that would allow him to avoid prison in the United States, a major development. The WikiLeaks founder agreeing to plead guilty to a felony charge related to his alleged role in one of the largest ever breaches of classified material in American history. Now, what that deal would do would be to allow Assange to leave that high security London prison where he's been for years stuck in London, and he would be allowed to return to his native Australia. Evan Perez is out front. And Evan, what more can you tell us about what looks to be, from what I just laid out at least, right, a huge win for Julian Assange?
They are, and look, the fact is that
Oh, 1 second, guys. Sorry, the volume is a little too high. I'm just going to bring it back a little bit.
Looks to be, from what I just laid out at least, right, a huge win for Julian Assange.
Well, absolutely, Aaron. Look, the fact is that that Julian Assange, under the terms of this agreement, will be pleading guilty to one count. He was facing 18 counts in total in the Eastern District of Virginia. But under this deal, he will present himself in a federal court in Saipan, in the Northern Mariana Islands, U.S. territory. And if everything is approved by the judge on Wednesday, he could be very soon after that on his way to his home country of Australia. And that's something.
Now, let's pause there for just a second, because I think this is the piece that is important to discuss. So Julian Assange is pleading guilty to one count. Now, apparently, as he said, there were more counts originally, but is pleading guilty to that one. I'm not sure how this plea deal is different from the one that he was offered before. I'm not sure if it's different at all. It could be the same plea deal. I know a lot of people are asking that question, like, why is he accepting the plea deal now? I don't know if it's exactly the same or not, but Julian Assange, actually, earlier this morning, I saw this. He was on his way to Saipan. To the gentleman's point there, yes, that is a U.S. territory. Now, here's some of the concerns that some people have. Julian Assange could land in a U.S. territory, and some people are afraid, what if they arrest him there? Now, we are crossing our fingers and hoping that the U.S. government does not do that, that they actually stick to the deal that was made, and they do not try to arrest Julian Assange, or they don't try to harm him in any way, shape, or form. Again, it's the U.S. government that we're talking about here. I don't see them being particularly nice to someone that they've imprisoned for all these years. So it is a U.S. territory. So that is the first step where he can sign that plea deal and agree to that. And then he should be back on his way to Australia. But he is not completely in the clear until he arrives in Australia. So a lot of us are holding our breath and just making sure that everything goes well in Saipan and he's able to return to his family in Australia. And it'll be great for him to see his kids and his wife and his brother and his father again. So hopefully everything goes well. Let's continue on here.
That the Australian government has been pushing and has gotten some tentative approval of the former President Biden, who expressed some sympathy for the idea of dismissing these charges. Now, under the terms of this deal, Assange will essentially get time served. He's been in a British prison since 2019, since he was charged, and has been fighting extradition to the United States. He was opposed to presenting himself to a federal court in the continental United States, according to a letter that was just filed in federal court in Saipan.
So, Evan, interesting that just the political layers to this. He has become a political lightning rod, the Assange case, for quite some time. Trump has implied he's a political prisoner, said that he would seriously considering pardoning him if he wins. How controversial is this Assange decision coming at this time from the Biden administration, given the fact, again, that what this goes back to is his role in one of the largest breaches of American classified material in history?
Right.
Pause there for just a second. So let's chime in and talk about the political implications of this. I did find the timing to be interesting. Let's just keep it real. The debate is Thursday, and Julian Assange was freed right before the debate. So I do question if this is a political move from the Biden administration. Don't get me wrong. I don't think that this move is going to change people's mind about Biden, especially those that are advocating for the Palestinian people. Freeing Julian Assange doesn't overdo Biden's involvement in the genocide in Gaza. It just doesn't. So let's just keep it real. However, I think his administration, maybe some of the advisors that are part of his campaign, maybe they feel this would help him in some way, shape, or form. But again, we have to look at the timing. So I feel like it could be a political move from the Biden administration. We'll have to wait and see. Maybe not. I don't know. The thing that he mentioned there about Donald Trump was really interesting too. He said, well, Trump said that he would pardon Julian Assange. Trump had the opportunity to pardon Julian Assange under his own administration. Remember, he talked about that at one point, but it never happened. We also have to remember that it was under Trump's administration that Julian Assange was kidnapped. That happened under Trump's administration. So Trump telling people that he would pardon Julian Assange if he's reelected, I think that's just BS. I've been saying this time and time again. He had the opportunity to do it and he chose not to do so. And you went after this man. You went after him. Now you're like, oh, I'll pardon him. Just elect me and I'll pardon him. Whatever, it's BS. However, again, a political move by the Biden administration where the Biden administration says, okay, let's get the jump on this one. I already have a terrible approval rating. It's too close. The polls are too close with Biden and Trump. And then there are third party candidates as well. Let's see if I can get some wiggle room here and let's go ahead and free Julian Assange. Now, the guilty plea. I want to be very clear because I don't like what Aaron just said there. Julian Assange should not have to plead guilty. Julian Assange, in my opinion, is not guilty. How are you guilty of publishing U.S. war crimes? So there's a couple of things. Aaron says they were classified documents. They should not be classified. These should not be sealed documents. You have a right to know what your government is doing. You have a right to know that your government is committing war crimes. So I don't think that Julian Assange should have to plead guilty. And I'm pretty sure he feels that way as well. I'm pretty sure his family members also feel that way. So I don't agree with the plea of guilty. That being said, we cannot pretend that this isn't some type of a win. Julian Assange finally gets to go home. And that is what a lot of us have been advocating for. We cannot forget about the activists on the ground, people like Misty Winston, Comrade Misty, probably one of the most vocal and active Assange activists that I know. People have been, protesting and advocating for Julian Assange since day one for years. And we cannot forget about that. And now he is free. For years, people have said, free Julian Assange. Now he's free. So that is a win within itself. However, do I think him having to plead guilty is a win? No, I don't. Because basically, this is a way of the government saying, you said that what you did was wrong. And I don't think what he did was wrong. The government shouldn't hide secrets from the American people. Let's say this again. The government shouldn't hide secrets from the American people. Julian Assange was a publisher. This is not a crime. That's how I see it. Let's continue on. I had to correct Aaron.
Exactly. And for those reasons, there was a lot of opposition within the Justice Department, within the FBI about any deal to send him back to Australia without at least some kind of resolution of the charges here in the United States. And so what I'm told is, the fact that he is going to plead guilty to a felony obviously has assuaged some of those concerns. But Aaron, absolutely, as you pointed out, this is a deal that also, he was indicted during the Trump administration. So the former president has been on all sides of this.
Yes, and important to point that out. All right, Evan, thank you very much.
Yeah, and also Barack Obama went after him too. Both parties failed Julian Assange. Both political parties failed him. So that's important to mention. Now, I do want to show you video footage. This is great. This is awesome. This is him actually boarding the flight in London. Let's go ahead and bring this up again. I still can't believe this is happening. I know yesterday it was like tears of joy because I just couldn't believe it. Watch this.
Well, it'll have a number. We don't. Okay.
So I want you to think about something here for just a second, because there's Julian Assange, right? I want you to think about all the things that Julian Assange has been through. Solitary confinement, which I describe as torture. I believe solitary confinement is torture. Solitary confinement. Not being allowed to interact with other prisoners. That actually went on for quite a while, according to his brother and his father. When I interviewed his brother and his father, they said that they had finally gotten to the point where he was allowed to actually go out and be around other people. There are murderers who don't get solitary confinement, ladies and gentlemen. They did this to Julian Assange. We're talking about psychological torture. We're talking about physical pain. We're talking about mental pain, anguish that Julian Assange has had to deal with for years. One thing that I hope is that people will allow him to have time with his family. Please do not bombard him at this point in time, because I already know some people, their fingers are just itching. Let me see if I can get an interview. I think it's best to just let him spend time with his family. And not only that, but to heal, because I can't even imagine what that is like. I've never been in prison, but from what I've seen from documentaries and from what I've heard from his family, I couldn't imagine having to endure that for 5 years for what he did. As I said, there are murderers who do not receive that type of punishment. So Julian Assange is going to have to take time to heal. And that's a reality, folks. And I really hope that he gets that type of peace. Because he's not the only political prisoner, guys. He's not the only one. This fight is not over. There's still Mumia. There's still Leonard Peltier. And then you have people that can't even come back to the United States. Assad Shakura can't come back here. Edward Snowden can't come back here. So this type of torture, it's a different type of torture in the sense that it breaks you. And I feel like they broke Julian Assange. Now, here's the other update here. This was from earlier this morning. This is his jet arriving in Bangkok. So Julian Assange could not take a commercial flight, just FYI. So this is a charter jet, I believe, one of those little small planes. So here you go.
Yeah, it's just like maybe like under those civilians and all that, up in the middle.
Now, I know some of you may be aware of this, but we were told actually at the last hearing of Julian Assange that he was not in good health at that time. So I can only imagine like how he feels. But they basically broke him, right? Now, follow Stella Assange on Twitter because she is tracking his flight. For those of you wondering, okay, where is he now? Earlier today, she posted this. Saipan is a remote U.S. overseas territory. He will be entering the United States. Julian won't be safe until he lands in Australia. So this is important. This is what I was saying earlier. The goal is to get him back home. But she posted a picture here so you can see Saipan is right over here near Guam. If you follow my cursor here over to the right side of this stream here, sorry, can't talk, the stream here. But that's where Saipan is located. So follow Stella Assange because she's giving you updates throughout the day. I'm actually going to just check really quick again to see if there was another update from her. Let's see here. Okay, this is from Pace Legal. At 2 p.m., we will be live tweeting our hearing and testimonies of foreign UN Special Rapporteur and on counterterrorism and human rights. So they're giving an announcement there that they're doing a reaction there. Now, another thing that I want to show you that Stella posted, she said to bookmark this. Assange perfected grounds of appeal. So follow this, ladies and gentlemen, because it appears there's already an appeal in works. It says in the matter of an appeal under S-103 of the Extradition Act 2003 between, and it says the appellant here is Julian Assange versus the government of the United States of America. Perfected grounds of appeal. So interesting here. Julian Assange and WikiLeaks were responsible for the exposure of criminality on the part of the U.S. government on a massive, unprecedented scale. And then it goes into links here. I just want to make sure I read this part here. The law is fiercely protective of human rights defenders. Exposure of state criminality is, in law, a protected political act, the product of a political opinion. Prosecutions on account of such acts are straightforwardly prohibited by S-81 of the 2003 Act. Okay, so it looks as though some type of appeal is in the works. So I did want to make sure that I showed you that. But again, follow Stella, please, on Twitter so that you can have updates about this. Again, I follow her. This isn't my Twitter account, FYI, if you guys are wondering why it's not a follow. This is the Type VNC Twitter, so it's not me. But I just want to go down one more. Okay, yeah. So then the other one was Saipan. I just wanted to make sure. But yes, I cannot say enough about this. Again, it's a win. You know, the fact that Julian Assange is free, but there's still work that needs to be done, obviously, right? He should not have to plead guilty. I 100% disagree with that because, again, that's the U.S. government's way of saying he knows what he did was wrong. And this is how they get you. And it's a felony. So a felony, again, that stays on your record. And you know all the different things that can bring with it as well. I have been very fortunate in the fact I have been able to speak to his family members in person. I have spoken at Assange rallies before. So I have been fortunate to hear directly from other activists and from the family. I interviewed his father and his brother in 2023. I believe that was March of 2023. And I want you to hear what they said here. Again, I've been very fortunate and very thankful. From what I understand, even though he is at Belmarsh, he actually hasn't been convicted of a crime, correct?
That's right. He's been held there solely at the request of the US DOJ. He's unconvicted, not serving a sentence. That's why it's often strange going to visit him, because you'll have other prisoners who are talking about the day they're going to get out, or, what they're planning for when they get released. But with Julian, we just don't know. It's a sort of never-ending court proceeding, and this whole time he's been kept in this prison that's has convicted murderers in it, convicted terrorists and things like that. And I think John's point about the prisoners, it was the prisoners petitioning that changed Julian's situation, and I think that sort of speaks to that Julian's situation is not going to change, from the top down. It's not the lawyers who are asking the prison to change his situation that worked. It's not the UN Special Rapporteur who found that Julian was being psychologically tortured that changed his position. It came from the bottom up, from the prisoners in the prison, putting forward these 3 petitions. So I think that's a really neat way to see, how things actually change in Julian's case, and it's from us, from the people, not, from a changing government or things like that.
Right. This is a message that we tell people a lot, like on the show, like it really does come from the people. Have you heard any type of communication from Merrick Garland or President Biden in reference to Julian's situation?
No, nothing at all, except Mark Raimondi. After the change of government, the Biden administration moved in. Mark Raimondi is the Department of Justice spokesperson for the Department of Justice.
Yeah. So at that point in time, they had not heard from the Biden administration. So it's kind of, there's like happy tears behind my eyes, because looking back at that and knowing the situation at that point in time, the situation was very grim. And looking back at that is just, look at how far they've come. Look at how far they've come. Look at where Julian is now. And this is why I didn't believe it. When I saw the notification last night, this is why I didn't believe it. I had to check. Let me check multiple sources, because I was like, there's no way this happened. Just kind of came out of nowhere. And the situation was just so grim. So, and we fast forward to the hearings. And even with the hearings, it was kind of like, okay, they're not going to extradite him back to the United States. But then it also sounded like they basically were just going to let Julian Assange die in Belmarsh. They were just trying to keep him there as long as possible. And his health was deteriorating. So looking back on this, man, it's just like, wow. Like, you have to give a lot of thanks and credit to the family, to his brother, his father, and his wife for continuing to fight for him. Not everyone has that. Not everyone has a family that continues to fight for their case. A lot of people would have given up by now, but they never gave up. Julian Assange's family has traveled all across this world trying to fight for him, to get people to listen. And then you have to think about the activists, the grassroots activists on the ground that have been fighting since day one. And I remember hearing people complain and say, protesting doesn't solve anything. These rallies don't do anything. Do you guys realize, because of the grassroots effort and because of his family, this situation became a worldwide phenomenon? There were people that I knew 6 years ago, 4 years ago, had no idea who Julian Assange was, never even heard of him. But the family and the grassroots and the activists and the protests, they do make a difference. Never let anyone tell you that direct action doesn't do anything. Sometimes it may take a long time. Civil rights movement didn't happen overnight, but it does make an impact. Number one, it makes more people aware of what is going on. And the more people that are aware, the more people you can have get out in the streets and protest against this and put pressure on the politicians. It starts in the streets. I want to end with this, speaking of starting in the streets. This was the Assange rally in DC. There were multiple speakers at this rally. I was fortunate to be invited to be a speaker at this rally. And I watched this clip last night and it just gave me happy tears because this is how far we have come. I believe this rally was, there should be a date here. Let me check. October 10th, 2022. October 10th, 2022. So just keep that in mind when you hear the speech. I'm going to end with this.
We have Sabrina Salvati. She is an activist, former educator, and host of the Sabs podcast, and co-host of the Revolutionary Blackout Network. Please give a warm welcome for Sabrina Salvati. Oh dear. Greetings. I'm a little short here, but here we go. First and foremost, big shout out to Misty for putting this together. All the Assange activists as well. It's not every day I get to be in DC, but so excited to see all you guys. When I studied journalism in undergrad, my professors told me that journalism was about reporting the facts. What they did not tell me was that there are certain agencies that do not want some facts or truths reported. Sometimes that decision lies in the hands of an editor, a publisher, a platform, or the United States government. Julian Assange is currently in prison for reporting the facts, for revealing harsh truths about U.S. war crimes. He's being tortured for doing his job. Some government officials, like John Bolton, have called Julian a criminal. I disagree. Journalism should not be a crime. But I would ask John Bolton, where is that same outrage for the real criminals? Where is that same outrage for the clients of Jeffrey Epstein? Where is that same outrage for the Wall Street bankers that stole people's homes during the housing crisis? Those are the real criminals, and they walk among us freely. Independent journalists like Julian are critical and necessary because media outlets such as CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC spread lies every day to the American people. They regurgitate the same narrative from the State Department, the narrative that the U.S. government has decided is acceptable. If commentators like Anderson Cooper told the truth, the real truth, would he still be employed at CNN? Make sure I got my page. If you're wondering why you should care about what's happening to Julian, if you value free speech or free press, then you should be very concerned about his ordeal. Over the past year, I've watched independent journalists and commentators struggle with censorship on various platforms. I've seen them have their work deleted, sometimes work that was published years ago. I've seen journalists demonetized and deplatformed, some of whom I know personally, and I know they do good work. I've seen Wikipedia pages smearing anti-war voices. And speaking of war, if you discuss Russia and Ukraine differently than mainstream media, you will also be censored or deplatformed. That's right. The same goes for Israel and Palestine, Syria, and Yemen. Censorship did not start with Julian Assange, and he is not alone. We must also mention voices like Daniel Hale and Mumia Jamal. But we must also ask our representatives in DC, where do they stand on this issue? In particular, the progressive members in Congress. With the exception of Ilhan Omar, where does the squad stand on Julian Assange and the issue of free speech? Why are they silent on this issue? If they're not willing to stand up for free speech, then they will vote accordingly. And we may not have independent media, the same media that gave them a platform when CNN would not. The same media that got them elected. So this time, it's Julian Assange. Next time, it could be someone else if we don't protect free speech. Next time, it could be you. Thank you.